Okay, in this video, I'm going to show you how to make a histogram in Excel. And in reality, this is probably going to be more helpful for you in the long run. A lot of different programs use Excel in their classes, so I do recommend if you haven't tried Excel, or you can also use Google Sheets. They're very, very similar. Not every step may be exactly the same in Google Sheets, but if you need some help, let me know, or check out some YouTube videos, but it'll be pretty similar. At least some of the functions there. So they're similar programs. One is produced by Microsoft, one is produced by Google. So I'm going to use Microsoft Excel here, which a lot of people do use in their career. So depending on what field you go into, you actually may find that you use Excel. So it's kind of nice to start to get to learn how to work with it a little bit here. So what I have done first is I just typed in all the data points for the problem. So what you can do is just hit the cell that you want, and then you can go ahead and type. So if I just select that cell and click it with my mouse, then I can write whatever I want. So data points, right? And then if I hit enter, it'll move me down to the next box. So I could type in, as many numbers as I need here for my data set. So I've already gone in and taken those 30 data points and typed them in here just to make it easier at the start of this video. So if you need to enter data as you get to different problems, you can type it in one at a time. I do recommend going vertically with your data rather than horizontally. It's just usually a lot easier to manage. So I do recommend that. All right, now there's different ways to create histograms in Excel. So I'm going to show you one way, the way that I like. And just see if I can, okay. All right. So what you're going to notice is you have a lot of different fields up top here. So I'm using a more current version of Excel, and you guys can download Microsoft too. If you go into iConnect, there should be an option for you guys to download Microsoft 365, which is what I'm using. And the first thing you want to do is I like to use what's called the analysis tool pack. It just makes things a lot quicker and easier, I find, in the long run with Excel and doing calculations. So what are you going to do there? So the first thing you're going to do, if you've never used it before, which you probably haven't, is you're going to go to Insert up top here. So click that button that says Insert, and then you're going to see here add-ins. So you want to look at My Add-ins, and you're going to click the drop-down menu. So don't click My Add-ins, click the little arrow next to it. And then you're going to select Manage Other Add-ins. There we go. Okay. So what you're going to notice here is your add-ins is selected, and at the very bottom, you're going to see Manage Excel Add-ins, and you're going to hit Go. What you want to do is make sure this first box is checked. So when you're signing in, you're probably going to see it like this the first time. So you want to check that first box. I also use a program called Solver, not for this class, so you don't need it, but just make sure that first box is checked, and then you're just going to hit OK. So once you have that done, you're going to have this analysis tool pack, and where you're going to find it is over here under Data. So click Data, and then on the right here, see how it says Data Analysis? That's that Data Analysis tool pack. That's what you want. It just makes it much easier than graphing everything kind of by more manually. So we're going to click that button, that Data Analysis button. All right, and you'll see there's lots of different features here. We're going to use some of these later on too. But see how there's one that says histogram? We're going to click histogram and click OK. Now it's going to ask you to give it some information. So we have to tell Excel what we're going to do. So the input range refers to your data points. And I'm going to come back to this box in a second. But what we're going to do is we're going to take our data and we're going to select it. Now what you can do is just click that first box, hold it down, and then drag that mouse or use your touchpad, whatever you're using, and drag it all the way down to the final data point. And see how it says A2 to A31? That means column A, and then it's going from row 2 down to row 31. So you can just select your data. The next thing it's asking for is the bin range. So I don't have a bin range yet. We're going to do this now. Excel uses the word bin instead of class. So even though they're saying a bin range, they actually mean your classes. So before you're in Excel, you have to already have done your frequency table, know your classes before you start. Just like we did really with the calculator, right? You need to know the information before your technology can graph it for you. So we need to know our classes. So I'm going to cancel this for a second and go back to my table. And then we'll review the steps one more time. So my classes, and I'm going to go back to my data here, were 155 to 190, 191 to 226. I'm just typing these in with you guys. 227 to 262, 263 to 298, 299 to 334, 335 to 370, and finally 371 to 406. Now, Excel is asking for something called a bin. The word bin and class are basically the same thing. So it just depends on kind of your field, what lingo you may use, if you use class or bin or even interval. So bin is just another word for class. But in Excel, you don't have to enter the entire class. They just need your upper class limits. So when you see bin, you want to think upper class limits or values, whatever you want to call them. Okay, so I just need the 190, the 226, the 262, the 298, the 334, the 370, and the 406. So in Excel, again, I'm going to repeat myself 1,000 times, bin is just your upper class limits. So usually for myself, I'll write my regular classes next to it just so I can see them, and then I'll just rewrite my upper class limits. All right, so let's go in and do this again. Now remember, to make your histogram, you're going to Data and Data Analysis. You're going to click Histogram, and we're going to enter our values. So your input range are your data points. So I'm going to click and hold down my mouse or my touch pad and then scroll it all the way down so I have all data points selected. Make sure you're holding it down right as you scroll. So then you'll see column A from rows 2 through 31. Now for your bin, I'm going to scroll back up in Excel here, and I'm going to select my bin values. So here, 190 through 406. And again, it's going to show you, we're going from D, row 2, right, because that's where my value starts, down to row 8. Now, I like to just leave it as a new worksheet, so it'll keep it in the same Excel file. It'll just give you a new sheet at the bottom. But you do need to click Chart Output. So make sure you click Chart Output there. You don't have to click labels. The way I do it is I usually will just not use my labels at the top here. So you don't have to click labels or anything. I just use the actual data values. And I'm going to hit OK. So you're going to notice that at the bottom, see how it created a second sheet? And now here's my histogram on the second sheet. Now you're probably saying, this doesn't look very good. We have to tweak it, right? So let's do some changing. So it's pretty easy to tweak it. I recommend you just kind of play around with it for a few minutes and give it a try. So one thing you can do is notice how it says bin down bottom, and then you have all your values here, right? Now, the easiest thing to do in Excel is to just change this to class midpoints. And once I change that, let me make this a little bigger here. What you can do here is just write right over it. It's not going to change the actual picture. It'll just change the numbers on the bottom. Is put in your class midpoints. So our class midpoints were 172.5, 208.5, 244.5, 280.5. And you can see as I'm typing these in, see how my graph is changing? So we've said before, you should either use your class boundary points or your class midpoints for your tick marks on the bottom. So usually this is the easiest way to do it. So let's see, 388. Oops. Oh my goodness, 388.5. Okay. And then see how it has a more, it always has a more category. What you can do is just delete that. So select that row, I'm gonna click row 9, and then I'm gonna right click my mouse, and I'm going to just delete. And then it deletes it right from our graph. All right, let's keep tweaking. So now I'm going to go into my graph here. I'm going to double click and I'm going to rephrase this. I'm going to delete bin and I'm going to write class midpoints, which is a much better label for our example. Oops, for our example. And then when you're done, you can just click out of it. I need to change my graph here. Okay, so just kind of double click and select it. And notice on the right, you do end up with these tools. Okay, so this first one here is going to help you with your colors and things. So I do like to have a solid line border, and that just puts a line around my bars. So I do recommend selecting solid line border. And then for your fill, that's the color on the inside. You can kind of do whatever you want there. You can change your colors or decide if you want it to be solid or gradient or whatever you want for your background and stuff. Okay. I'm gonna do no fill. I don't like that. So we'll leave it like this. Okay. So here as well, I'm gonna now click into my bars. Okay, so this is really where we're gonna do some editing. And again, I like to have that solid line border around everything. I'm just thinking it's easier to see. And then you can also go up here. So if you look at the top, you can kind of just play around with different options, like different colors and things. Like if you like something like this, see how the kind of like different lines, you can use something like that. Maybe you like something that actually has the values going across the bars, make it easier to read. We do need to fix this and make the bars touching though. So on the left, you'll see quick layout, and you want to click the one that looks like a histogram. So click that, and you'll see that you have this histogram forming, right? So it looks better, not perfect, but it looks a lot better now. But again, we need to tweak. So this time, notice that you can kind of click here and edit the background. You can click in here and edit the overall picture here, or you can also click the bars. So again, click the bars, and I like to add in that solid line. That way I can see the difference between them. Yes, I'm gonna use that solid line. And I am gonna change my color a little bit. This is a little dark for me. Let's see if we can fix this. So I'm over here into shadows and things like that. When you're doing your histograms, I'm going to recommend that you not use any 3D effects or soft edges and things like that. They just kind of look a little strange. We don't like 3D graphs. They're actually very difficult to read, and they sometimes distort the proportions. So I do not recommend using any of the 3D formats. So definitely play around and kind of try different colors out and try different you know, patterns or textures, kind of like whatever you want is fine. But again, I do not recommend that you use any sort of 3D effects or anything that's too crazy as you're doing this. Okay. Right, so you can just see here, I'm just kind of playing around. So I changed the color. I put that, change my line there so that I have the borders, and makes it just a little bit easier to see. So this looks pretty good to me. I feel pretty good with those class midpoints. I like that my bars are touching. I changed the color, made it a little bit lighter to read. I updated my labels, and I added those borders. And you can see the frequencies are over here. Now the other cool thing you can do is you can even drag this. So if you want to make this, so notice what happened. So here, when it was like this, it's a little squished, right? My axis is like just 0, 5, and 10. It's a little hard to read. So I can resize my graph. And if I pull it down, you can see that it now breaks it down a little bit more for me, right? So now I'm counting by ones. So you can kind of just play around with it. Now I'm counting by twos and just see what you think is best representative for that graph. I like the counting by ones here because my frequencies are pretty small. I think this gives me the nicest picture. So I can do that too. And again, there's different styles. I'm not going to choose any of these really because I want my bars to be touching. So I kind of like the quick layout one instead. But feel free to play around with the different features and colors and all that stuff. The more you kind of play around with it, the easier it will be to manipulate.